Well, hey everyone, Matt here once again to show you how to work in Ableton for your Sunday sets. I am going to show you today how to set up the song. Now, in the last video that I posted, I showed you how to make a complete set for Sunday, but this video I'm going to show you how to make those individual songs, those .als files, to drop in into Ableton. I'm going to show you everything from how I put the tracks in there, how I get everything lined up, the cues, the click, and then also how to get ProPresenter connected to those songs. And so I hope that this video is helpful to you. I hope that it encourages you, and I hope it gives you some, creativity and some ideas for your own worship service. So let's jump over to the screen and I'll show you what we're working with here. In Ableton, I actually have an Ableton file called Ableton template project. And so I'm going to go ahead and open up that file here. I had the other project open still. I'm just going to leave this window open kind of in the background. All right, so here is what the Ableton template project looks like. Basically, it has that silent audio track. It has the automation here that we saw in the previous video that has the MIDI cues for ProPresenter. I have click tracks, I have my cues track, and I have my markers track. Now, the cues track I actually purchased, I believe, from loopcommunity.com. You can get that there. They actually have something kind of similar to this there. But a lot of this actually is included in when you receive your Multitracks downloads. You'll have these individual locators already mapped out for those songs. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to open up a song that I downloaded. Let's see here. Actually, I'm going to download a song really quick because I don't have one just readily available. So I'm going to fast forward this video through this part. All right, I've got my file ready to go. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to open up the file that Multitracks gives me. Now, I downloaded the Multitracks file in WAV format, and it already has an Ableton template in there. So I'm going to open it up here. Yes, I Will is the song I am going to do from Vertical Worship. And you'll see I have a multitrack.als file right here. I'm actually going to open that instead of my Ableton template because it's easier to work from that than this. So I do not want to save the changes I've made here. Okay, that's fine. Cool. All right, so now you see here, this is what you get from multitracks.com. Really cool. I love how they color code everything. Really helpful, really beneficial. And the tracks sound just absolutely incredible. Really highly recommend multitracks.com. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first group these tracks. I downloaded Yes, I Will in the key of B, as I can see up here. And even whenever you go to download it, it actually shows, the BPM and the key that you downloaded it in. So I'm going to highlight all the tracks, hold Shift, and hit Command G. And that's going to group all of them together. I'm going to go ahead and rename this. I'm going to put B-Yes, I Will, because in the future I may decide that we want to sing the song in a different key. And so I like to download those keys. You can actually, in Ableton, you can increase or decrease the key, and they do sound pretty good as long as you're only going, up or down by maybe a half or a whole step. Once you get into the 2 to 3 steps range, it starts sounding a little goofy. There are some tricks that you can do that make it sound decent, and I'll kind of show you what that looks like. But for now, I'm going to name this B. And then what we will do is I'm going to go ahead and drag in my Ableton template project. Now I have this file here and I will upload this file for you to use. Since it pretty much is my template, other than the cues, you may need to download, you do need to go download those from Loop Community if you don't have them already. So I'm going to drag over my Ableton template here. All right, and you can see here that obviously it's laid out very terribly. It's because I'm still using the multitracks.com markers here, and the markers don't line up, so we're gonna have to do all of that. What I normally do is I go ahead and move these tracks to the bottom, and then you need to go ahead and make sure that you change your tempo track, and it looked like I had 2 in there. You need to change your tempo track to the correct BPM. Like I showed you in the other video, we got to make sure that this tempo track is leading the rest of the track, but also it has the right BPM. So we're going to do 75 here, and I'm going to unclick leader and then click it again so that it puts it back in the right length. So, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lengthen all this stuff, and I'm going to delete all of these little MIDI triggers in there. And I've got my little click here because the built-in one that comes from Multitracks is okay. If I'll let you listen to it real quick. Let's see what it sounds like. If you can hear that. You can totally use that if you want. It sounds pretty good if that's if you like that that more natural click sound. I personally like the built-in Ableton click better. It's a lot easier to hear in the midst of all the music that's in your in-ears on stage. The beep boop, I don't know. It's just easier to hear for me. So we've been using it for a while. That's what we'll still continue to use. But the click track that comes with multitracks.com isn't bad. Same as the guide. The guide isn't bad. I just prefer to use my own so I can do whatever I want to in it. So let's go ahead and let's move some of these markers over. There's no pre-chorus in this song. Let's see, we got interlude. Now all these markers will automatically be in this template that I upload so you can use them, but these markers are literally just they're actually just MIDI sections that don't have any notes in them. So like for instance, Command Shift M, I might make a MIDI section and I'll just rename it like, instrumental or something like that. If I could spell instrumental, instrumental, and then you can right click and you can change the color to whatever you want. So pretty cool. I like having those just to make it easier to see where I'm at in the song. So we got verse, we got chorus. Let's see, chorus. It looks like there's a tag right there. I do have a tag already made. Your first time through this might take some time because you may not have all of your markers set up already. Let's see, there's multiple tags here, and then we have our ending, and then we don't have any instrumentals or refrains or anything like that, so I'm gonna delete all of those. So now my markers are lined up with the song, and then my click track should already be lined up. I have this in a 2/8 click. It's basically a 4/4 click. If I solo this, you can kind of hear what it sounds like. Let's see, I don't have it on. So it's exactly the same metronome that's built into Ableton up here. I like that. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm actually gonna delete click track here. I'm gonna open up guide, and I can see where the guide is saying the different parts for where my markers are at. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna go into my cues here, and I'm going to line up all of my cues with their cues in the guide for now. Okay, so it looks like my cues here are already lined up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's decrease the volume of the guide here. I didn't mean to close that. Let's see.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so one other thing I need to do is I need to change my tempo for this. I'm going to use 2/8. I like to have a little bit faster metronome to stay on track. So
1, 2.
For me, that's just easier to follow. For a lot of the team, it's easier to follow. So I usually use a faster, double time, basically, tempo for this. So I have my cues on. I can hear them. Let's see.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So all those are correct. I'm going to zoom in here on my cues. Looks like this should be verse. I'm going to move verse up.
Verse.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to get rid of this verse. And just for the sake of simplicity, I might speed through this. I'm going to fast forward through this so this video isn't super long, but you can kind of see what I'm doing. Double clicked on the cues track here, and I'm just going through this entire thing here. And I'm making sure that all the cues are in the correct spots. So for instance, there should be a chorus right here. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to make sure chorus is here. Chorus, that lines up.
Chorus.
Okay, so I've done this a billion times, so I kind of know what this looks like. But you know, once you have once you kind of have a rhythm, you can kind of follow this easier. So I'm just going to go through this really quickly and finish up all of these. Let's see here. We got a verse here. Verse. Okay, don't need that one. This should be a chorus. Chorus. Let's move over. This one was not meant to be there. Oops, I didn't mean to do it that way. I'm going to just get rid of this. Let's see. This should be a tag. So I'm going to take this up to tag. Yes, I will. And bridge is there. Looks like this one should be probably a bridge and build it up. So, and I'm going to move it over to where it lines up with the guide on here. And most likely that is a, let's just make sure. Oh, no, it's a drum solo. All right, that's what I'm talking about, drum solo. So I actually don't have drum solo as one of my cues in here. So I'm just gonna call it drums, which is good enough. We'll know what that means. So we'll do acoustic. Oops, I made it acoustic, it should be drums. There we go. Drums. Perfect. Let's see what she says here. Build it up here, okay? So we're gonna do build it up. Not too, there we go. Okay, and then we have chorus. Chorus all in. So I'm going to go to chorus. I'm going to find all in. So I know I have that one. Okay, and this one doesn't need to be here. This one doesn't need to be here. This should be a tag. I'm going to move it over to tag. This is a pretty short song, so this is a really good example, actually. This makes it a little bit easier. So I got tag. Got tag one. Hope this should be a tag. Okay, and I got one more tag over here. Nope, that's end. Let's move it up to end. Okay, so let's make sure those line up. Okay, so they say ending, but it's end on here. Cool. We have all of our cues in there, so that all sounds good. I'm actually going to get rid of the guide track now because I do not need it anymore now that I have all those tracks in there. Everything's lined up. Everything sounds great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure, let's see. I have my click, I have my, okay, automation's not in there yet. Cool. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add the original track in there. Like if you saw my last video, I put the original track in there. A lot of times what I do that because if we're in the middle of rehearsal and we want to listen back to the original track for any reason, I also use the original track in Ableton for practice tracks. And so we have a rehearsal license through CCLI. And what I do is I actually take the original track and I elevate the individual tracks that I get from Multitracks above the original track for practicing purposes. Now, I will tell you that multitracks.com has a rehearsal subscription built in, and it is really, really cool because it works with Planning Center. So Planning Center and Multitracks.com, they can actually sync up. And when you go to add songs, I'm sure you've seen it if you use Planning Center, that you can actually check the box for rehearse. And so you can actually get these tracks above the original track, or your worship team members can actually go to the song in Planning Center and listen to their track above the rest, which is super duper cool. So really recommend. It'll save you a bunch of time trying to do this all on your own, making sure that levels are above and all this stuff. Rehearse is really, really cool. It is a little bit, there is a money aspect to it. And so I understand if you decide, hey, I'd rather put the time in than the money. I totally get it. So, but this is how I do things. And so I'm going to go ahead and add the original song in here. And I have it right here. I downloaded it earlier. And what we got to do is we've got to make sure that it lines up in here. So I'm going to turn warp off. A lot of times when warp is on, it changes the length of the song. Because maybe the tempo track doesn't line up, or it's not exactly the correct BPM, whatnot. So I usually turn warp off and then I turn it right back on. And what that does is it makes sure that the timing stays where it's at. Now, there's a lot of songs that don't start exactly. Like, for instance, if I was to take this song from where it actually begins in the track, there's a little tiny bit of space here you can see. If I were to play it right here, it would not be on tempo. You can hear that it's just slightly off tempo. And so what we need to do is we need to make sure that we are dragging this directly on tempo. And I know that this part is the intro. Actually, if you zoom in even further, you can see it looks like from the get-go that was correct, but it's still off by just a little bit. So let's move it over till it's just about spot on. Even then, that should be about right. Yeah. So let's play this real quick and see if it's correct. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Man, I love this song. Kudos, Vertical Worship. This is such a good song. And so anyway, I'm going to, okay, so Yes, I Will. The original key is actually not B. I'm pretty sure the original key is C. So we're going to have to actually take this track. If you listen in.
3, 4.
Ooh, there's some dissonance there. It's because the key that I downloaded is B, and the key that the original is in is, I'm pretty sure it's C. It sounds like it's a half step incorrect. So what you have to do is double click on Yes, I Will, and you have to make sure that you are warped before you do this, okay? If you are unwarped and you try to decrease the key, what Ableton is actually doing whenever it's warping it, whenever you're transposing it, it's actually taking the song and it's either decreasing the time to lower the key or increasing the time to raising the key, and then it's keeping the length the same. So what it does is it stretches it out to make it sound like it's in a lower key. You know how if you take a song and you stretch it out and you slow it down, it's like, that's exactly what Ableton is doing. It's taking the song, it's slowing it down, but keeping the same length of time. And so everything's still on beat, but it is lowering the key. So I'll show you what this looks like really quick. If I warp this and I transpose it down, let's just go to like -5. You can hear, I'm gonna solo this, how much lower this is compared to normal. And as I move the transpose tool, but you could, okay, so you can see that it's changing the key here in the transpose tool. Super duper cool. Ableton I just love Ableton, okay? I know I've said that a billion times, but I just love Ableton. So basically does essentially what Planning Center does whenever you change the key and you use the transpose tool there. They do pretty much exactly the same thing that you're doing here. However, Planning Center does not have this ability. What you can do is when you transpose the song, you can actually tell it to transpose in a complex or complex pro format. And what this actually does is it warps it, but it tries to keep the actual formants in the song so that the person doesn't sound weird. Does that make sense? Like if I were to use just the normal that's built in and I raise the key to like 5, this guy, when he starts singing, is going to sound like a chipmunk. Yeah. Yeah. Not a fan of the way that sounds. And so what you can do is if you change this here to complex or complex pro, now complex pro is actually going to save the formants or make the formants much, much better. If it still sounds weird, sometimes some higher sounding synth stuff or some percussion, if you use complex pro, it won't fix the key correctly. And I know percussion doesn't really have a key. It does still change because you're still changing the you're still transposing the song, so it will still change the key of the drums, the key of the drums, but I guess the tone would go down or up. But sometimes it does not catch the key correctly, and sometimes you'll hear certain tracks won't sound quite right. So sometimes you have to use complex, but for the most part, you're able to use complex pro on the main track. So if I use complex pro and do this, it almost sounds like a female singer, doesn't it? Like if I don't use pro, let's say I just use complex. Let's do that. It still kind of has that chipmunky sound. So let's go back to pro. It almost sounds like a female singer. But in this case, I only need to transpose it down one half, basically a half step. Let's see if that sounds good. Sounds like the original song to me. It doesn't even sound like the key has changed. So I only went a half step. You're not going to hear much difference going from like C to B, for instance. So let's make sure that this lines up with the actual other tracks. Okay, it's the same key. So now we do have this original track in B. So I'm going to actually save all this. This is pretty much all the information that we're going to need within this this Ableton package. And so now a lot of times with Multitracks, it was created with a different version of Live. It's fine. Hit save as. We're going to name this. This is my naming convention. You can use it if you want to. Helps me out tremendously. But I use the name of the song. Yes, I will. And then I do underscore, and then I do the key of the song that we have it in. Now, if I have multiple keys, I'll put multiple keys. So maybe I would do it in B, E, and G or something like that, But in this case, I only have B in here for now. Then I do underscore, and then I do the tempo of this track. And so it is 75 BPM. And then I put in here empty so that I know that there's actually multi-tracks in here and this is a multi-tracks song. The reason I do that is because there are some songs that I set up in my folders that do not have multi-tracks in them. It's literally just clicking cues. There are some songs that we do that only have a pad behind it, for instance, and I did not purchase the multi-tracks song. So we do that sometimes too. So I will not put an MT at the end just so I can see at a quick glance whether or not it is a multi-track song. or not. And so I'm going to save it in my tracks folder. I have a single folder that I keep all of my tracks in, as you can see here, and I'm going to save it right here, and I'm going to save. Now it is in there. Now there's another important thing that we have to do, very similar to whenever you're saving your Sunday project, your complete set. You need to do a collect all and save, because what happens is when you download the tracks from Multitracks, all of these individual tracks are actually still in my downloads folder. They're still all in here. Okay, they're not actually in the folder for the Multitracks. So let me go back over to my, let's see. If I go to tracks and if I go to Yes I Will, there are no Multitracks in here. So what we need to do is we need to go to File, Collect All, and Save, and it's going to collect everything. It's even going to collect the blank, the quiet tempo track. It's going to collect cues, all the click tracks, all the sounds for like the guy saying verse and chorus. All of those are individual files that the cues are tapping into. And so now if we go to this folder, we'll see all of those files have populated. All my multi-tracks are in there. All of my samples for my metronome are in there. All that good stuff. So another great thing that I love about Ableton 10 that I think maybe Ableton 9 didn't do, Live 9 didn't do, is it does automatic backups. So if something happens in your application quits, when you reopen it back up, it's going to open the last version or the last time it did an autosave, which is super nice. Most of the time it does it like, you know, it does it frequently. So, so now I have my song. If nothing else, you could actually use this to drop in to your Sunday set. You have all of your cues, you have all your markers, you have all of your individual tracks. You are set up for success here. I'm going to do the automation for ProPresenter, how to link those up, how to make sure that all your MIDI triggers are all synced, your computers are synced up over the network. I'm going to actually do all that in another video, because just showing you the automation, how to put in MIDI triggers here won't really be super helpful. I want to show you how to connect the computers over network, all that stuff. So for this sake, pretty much you are set. You can then go in here and you could, you know, for instance, if I want to hear the drums only, I could unmute all of these. I mean, I can mute all these tracks, and what I could do is I could take the main track down to like -10, for instance. If I have my drum track here, I'll actually hear the drums above the rest of the song. Now without them, it sounds like this. With them on, I could even take the main track down even further. And so now you have something that your drummer can practice to. Same thing with bass. If I want to turn bass on, I have something for my... As you can hear, the bass is much, much louder. Super helpful, especially when it comes to guitars, because a lot of times with guitars, it's really hard to hear the intricacies that they're playing in the guitar. So if you're wanting your worship team members to play the song exactly as it's written, I don't see why you wouldn't do that. I mean, these guys, they labored over this song to make it sound the way that it does, to make it sound as good as it does. I know personally, anytime I have, you know, a guitarist come in and he's, you know, he doesn't know the song, he's just kind of playing whatever, it never sounds right. It never sounds that good. So I usually have my worship team members learn the song as it's written. That way, when we come together, because we don't get a whole lot of time to rehearse, when we come together, I know exactly what everybody's playing. And the cool thing about it is the bassist knows exactly what the drummer is going to play. So whenever he practices his bass parts and he makes them sound, or she makes them sound just like, you know, the track, you know, those bass hits are hitting on the kick, you know, or even with the drums, like the drummer, he plays his parts almost exactly like the song. Most of the time it is exactly like the song. He's super good. But I know what he's playing, so I never have to worry about him, you know, doing a fill in a weird spot and it doesn't sound right with the rest of the music or whatnot. So it's super helpful when it comes to rehearsal time. We all get together and we all know what each other's playing. And so I don't have to worry about somebody playing this crazy, guitar solo piece over a quiet verse or something like that, so it's super helpful. So what I would usually do in this case is I would then, for instance, have drums turned up, and I would hit Command Shift R, and I would actually export this file as a drums elevated file, and so our drummer could listen to it and practice to it. So super duper helpful. Like I said, you got to make sure that you do have a rehearsal license to be able to do that. You can't just upload songs to Planning Center and let people listen to them. That is illegal. You have to have the licenses for rehearsal. You need to have all your CCL licenses before you CCLI licenses, sorry, before you do a lot of this stuff. But once you have those, man, you're free to practice this stuff. And obviously, you can't just upload it and put it out there for the world to hear, but for practicing purposes, I believe it is fine. So if I'm wrong on that, somebody needs to tell me, because we've been doing it. But that's how we have the song set up. At this point, this track is now saved in my folder. So when you go into your Sunday set list to create your 3, 4, 5, however many songs you play on a Sunday, now you can actually take this Yes I Will .als file, drag it in, and you'll have all of this right here drop in to your set list. I hope this video was helpful to you. Like I said, I hope that it encourages you whenever you're using this file right here. If you want to arrange it a different way, you could totally do that, like we do on a Sunday. I usually keep the song like this intact as the original. I usually don't play around with the arrangement here. I usually play around with the arrangement when it comes to the Sunday planning, just so I know that this song is intact the way it is. But you could totally, if you wanted to, take, like, for instance, if I was to click on chorus here as my marker, I could go to edit, cut time, and I could then, click on this marker to place. I would probably paste the time back in there. But then what I would do is I could then click the marker here, and I could hit edit, paste time again, and now I have 2 choruses there. Super easy, super cool. So now if I were to play through it, coming to the end of the chorus, obviously the original song isn't going to sound right, but if I have all of these tracks enabled, you can hear what it sounds like. If you were to play in a live environment, all of these tracks enabled would sound pretty much like the original, like, if you added another chorus. Check this out. And most of the time, you're not going to have all these tracks. You're going to have, like, maybe loop, effects. You're going to have, probably won't have any guitars, piano. You're going to have these keys, and you might have choir in there, Let's see. Take that down a little bit. Usually I take it down pretty, if I'm going to use a choir track in the background, I take it down so it's just barely in there. So if I play this through now with 2 choruses copied in, sounds pretty good. You could totally use that, have multiple choruses in there. So however you want to, set this up. If you want to go ahead and arrange it a certain way so that your team practices it that specific way, you could totally do that. If you want to do verse 1 twice, or you want to do more tags at the end, or you want to have another interlude between the bridge and the chorus, you could totally, do that same method, cut time. It cuts that entire section. And then obviously we could paste time, and then come over here and, if I want to do, an interlude between these 2 bridges, I could click on that marker there. I'm sorry, you have to actually click in the, in the actual view here. You can't just click on the marker. You have to click in the view. But then I can go to edit, paste time, boom. I have an interlude. If you want to have an interlude in between, you could totally do that. Totally works out. Completely up to you how you want to arrange your song. like I said in the last video, if the Holy Spirit's speaking to you in the planning process and, you know, he's saying, you know, add this part here, add this part there, you could totally do that in the planning process. You don't have to wait, you know, necessarily for Sunday and be, you know, stuck in a song. The song doesn't necessarily have to be scripted per se. I hate using the word scripted, but you know, you can plan the song the way that the Holy Spirit is speaking to you in the planning process. And if the Holy Spirit is speaking to you during the service and, you know, whatever, that's fine. But I do believe the Holy Spirit can talk to you in the planning process just as much. So, you know, pray, obviously seek God, ask him what he'd have you do with the song. But yeah, I usually lay out the song exactly as it's written, at least at this part. And then when I come to the Sunday planning arrangement, I might change it, whatnot. I might add a chorus at the end, or I might want to do a soft chorus at the end. Maybe I'm going to, you know, put this song right before a soft song. Maybe I'm going to put this song right before Nothing Else, or something like that. And I want to take it down, you know, in a soft chorus. Yes, I will, you know, take it down to a quieter chorus. And then that way it kind of transitions into the next song and it's real sweet and pretty. And so anyway, transitions really do matter. So I'm a big proponent of that. But anyway, I hope this video has been helpful to you. I hope that it encourages you, gives you some ideas for what you can do in your worship environment. And I am praying that God can just use this video and will use this video to help you with your worship. And man, just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a lot better than you think you are, I'm sure. And you know, even if it's taking you up to this point to, you know, start using Ableton, maybe you've heard of churches using Ableton for a while now and you wanted to do it, but you weren't sure how. I really hope this video helps you get to that. Watch as many times as you need to. If you have any questions, I'm going to put my information down below, and then I'll also link up the template that I use that you can use to drag into the Multitracks project and have everything there that you need. So I hope this finds you well, and like I said, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments or send me a direct message on Instagram or whatever you want to do. I will talk to you guys again soon.